Alright guys, welcome back. As you just saw, I did remove the inner part of the gas lid here, and that allowed me to go ahead and lay this replacement panel on the car itself and kind of get an idea of where I'm going to need to cut. So I took a Sharpie and I actually just drew a rough outline of the section I'm going to cut out. And what I'm going to end up doing is using a piece of tape here and actually taping off the actual straight line that I'm going to cut using a Dremel. I'm going to use a Dremel because it's going to give me a little bit more control, and it's not going to get too hot and actually cause warping issues on the panel itself. I'm going to use this method here because I've been watching V-Tuned on his channel, and he does a lot of quarter replacements and things like that. And this is a method he uses where he cuts out the section he wants to use, and then he will actually lay over this outer section on the car itself and mark exactly where it was cut. That way you get a perfect match every time. And the fact that the gas lid will line up exactly with the gas lid on the car, that's going to give us a perfect match and hopefully allow the gap to be very minimal, so our weld is actually going to be a easy weld and very minimal gaps to fill in. So let's go ahead and get this taped up and see what we can do. Alright, I think I've decided I'm going to try a different method. The method I'm going to try is actually just peeling the tape off, and I trimmed along this edge here so I have a reference point so I can peel this tape off, keep it very straight if you're careful, and then I can just tape it right along the same spot, and I've got a reference point down here as well that I trimmed up around this little bump, so I'll have 3 reference points that I can line it up to. Because this thing won't sit completely flush, I mean I could wedge it in here like this right here, and there is a little bit of a gap between there. I could probably mark it, and I may go ahead and just pre-mark it and then peel the tape off and then overlay it to make sure that they do match up. And I just think that this gap here could cause a little bit of a discrepancy on where I mark it if you go at the wrong angle. So I'm going to try both methods here. I'm going to mark it first, take this off, peel the tape off, and lay it on top of there, and just double check my mark and remark it if I have to. Alright, the tape did have a lot of flex in it, so the mark was a little bit further out. I don't know if this is going to be the most accurate because this thing can bend and flex quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape off. And I was just looking, and I think I'm just going to put the replacement panel directly on top of here and just mark it that way. I mean, that makes the most sense because I do have a point of reference right here, this square and this square for the clip holders. And I'm just going to mark the outside of this, and then I will cut on the line and actually cut the line off, or actually I'll cut on the inside of the line, and that will allow me to butt this up directly against it. So I'm going to clean this old line off and put a new one on there after I trace the new panel. All right, there's my new line. I will need to make sure I cut on the inside of this line. That way I don't have too big of a gap. Alright, as you can see, this piece of quarter panel has a ton of holes in it. On the back side, you can definitely see all of the Bondo that has squeezed through, and where it has squeezed through, there was no protection on the metal, so it got water in there and it started rusting. So all these spots have rust on the back side, and there was really some pitting starting to happen here on the front as well. So that's mainly the reason I cut this section out. It actually cut out pretty decently. It took me a long time because that Dremel, it has a really small cutting wheel on it, and it really just took forever. But I did manage to get it cut out, and everything fits up pretty good. This will fit in there fairly decently. I do have some trimming I need to do around the edges a little bit to get it to fit in there perfectly, and that's probably what I'm going to do next. I'm going to use the sanding disc to get rid of some of this paint here where we're going to be welding. I don't know really how I'm going to get rid of some of these frayed edges here, but I'll figure something out, probably a wire brush or even the Dremel bit to get in there and really just fine tune these edges a little bit. That way it's a perfect fit. So that's the next step here, and hopefully we'll be welding soon. considering I'm not a welder, I'm really happy with how this turned out. This is probably the hardest part of this entire rebuild project in my opinion, at least for me. I had never welded before, and this was a big challenge, but it was something that I thought I could probably take care of after watching some videos online, and I really didn't want to send this off to have somebody else do it. I really didn't know, what they would end up doing as well. I mean, they could have messed it up, but I'm happy with how it turned out. It fit in there just perfectly based on the template we used. Got that old section cut out, and this section here is a lot better than what that was. I did not want to deal with trying to repair that. It's really mangled up and it's got rust in there. But this right here is perfectly straight. There's one little ding right there, but I mean, honestly, we're going to be doing a lot of body filler around this weld anyway after we get ground down. I'm confident that this is going to look really nice once I'm done with it. Moving forward though, it should be super easy now. Just standard body work all around the car and just taking care of the usual stuff. And that stuff I feel kind of confident in that I can take care of, no big deal. This was a huge hurdle and I'm really glad that it's over with, to be honest with you. I really don't want to deal with welding stuff like that in again, but who knows what I'll be getting into. The Civic will probably require that as well. Quarter panels are pretty mangled up on that. But I hope you've enjoyed today's video and you've learned something. I definitely learned something, and I took my time with that. Didn't want to let it get heated up too much. And honestly, I think it turned out perfectly for my first time doing it. Hopefully you'll join me next time as I get this thing smoothed out and we start the body work on the rest of the car.